Welcome once again to the Change Exchange, where our guest today, Graeme Joffe, a radio man, sportsman, and all kinds of other things.
Athlete. Great to be here.
Why journalism in the first place?
I'll never forget it. It was I had a passion growing up as a kid. I used to watch Trevor Quirk every Saturday afternoon with my grandfather on the couch. SABC Top Sport was from 2 o'clock till 6 o'clock. I never got off the couch. And I loved everything. As a kid, I grew up playing every kind of sport, loved sport, and when I finally got to make that big decision on what you study after high school, journalism was a given. And at that time, Rhodes University was the only place that really you could study journalism. And best 3 years of my life, Rhodes University, studying journalism, playing sport, living sport, even started journalism while I was at Rhodes University. And even before I went to Rhodes, I actually started the school sport column for the Star newspaper. So already it was going to happen. The sports journalism for a guy that just loved sport and, basically breakfast, lunch and supper was sport.
What is it about journalism? I teach a little bits and pieces here and there, and I always try and say this to the students. Why do we exist? What are journalists for?
Well, not to make money, because it's not a very well-paid profession. So if you're getting into journalism and you think you're going to be a billionaire, good luck to you. But I love it. It's like a hobby. When you wake up in the morning, and now as I do, I wake up 5 o'clock every morning to do my SportsFire Daily newspaper.
Doesn't feel like work.
No, it's a hobby. It's a passion. I love writing. I love compiling, putting it all together, especially, and that's what I tell a lot of people. It's just, if you have a job in life where you're passionate about it, there's 80% of your problems solved, because that's 80% of your life is work. And now what I'm doing, investigative sports journalism, it's fascinating. We're digging up stuff, looking for dirt. And, as a proud South African, love it when South African athletes achieve on the international stage. And what better to be able to write about it as well.
We'll get to that. But let's go and pick up your story in the beginning. How did CNN happen? You went there in 92. You must have been barely out of university.
That's correct. Graduated from Rhodes end of 91. I went overseas to a sister's wedding in Chicago, and while I was there, I said, let me spend 6 months, see if I can get a job. Sent out probably 100 CVs, of which maybe I got 3 replies, one of them being CNN. I was in the right place at the right time. And the funny story is that when the head of CNN Sport at the time was a guy called Bill McPhail. And when he called me, after sending out 100 CVs and only getting the odd reply, you start becoming despondent. Not realizing that, the people are getting hundreds of CVs every day from around the world. And when Bill McPhail called me, I actually thought it was my brother-in-law playing a prank on me. So I said to him, listen, John, enough's enough. Bill McPhail calls me from CNN. I said, John, enough's enough, really. I'm tired of your pranks and stuff. And the guy said, this is really Bill McPhail. Would you like to call me back on this 404 number, which was Atlanta? So I got quite a
And
fright.
you were still in Chicago?
I was still in Chicago. So he probably thought, who's this guy thinking that I'm a prankster? But it was amazing. Got an interview with CNN. You must remember at that time, 1992, CNN International starting to become the big thing. The Gulf War had happened. CNN International. You're watching a war live on television for the first time.
And they were the first international network, right?
Correct. And they needed international sports people. And on my CV, luckily I had journalism, plus the fact that I knew that I played cricket, soccer, rugby. I was a sports journalist, and I really was in the right place at the right time.
And what was it like? Those next, 7, 8 years?
If I take it overall, incredible. It set me up for life. It taught me things about television that I knew nothing about. Graduating from Rhodes University, you learn. I had certain skills, but I certainly didn't have television skills. First 2 years, very difficult. They threw me in the deep end. Suddenly I was anchoring, presenting, writing, editing. Because in those days, the sports bulletins were all recorded, so you had to do everything yourself. Sure, now I drowned. And
what a training school?
No, it was. For me, it was a hard training school, because going to millions of people around the world, and here I know nothing about presenting. And I'll never forget, after about 5 or 6 months, they actually pulled me off there and said to me, look, we need to send you for some training. The Japanese people don't understand you. And that was a good excuse. But I remember I went to the trainer, the presenting training, and the woman said to me, you're doing too much head dancing. So I was so giddy. There I was on television, bouncing up and down, thinking my mother was telling me how good I am. I was awful. I had the other skills. I knew about sport. I was passionate. It wasn't a
So your
sport.
content was good.
Content was good, but my presenting skills were wonderful.
And why the decision to come back?
You never get Africa out your blood. As a proud South African, to be a sports journalist and never to be work in your home country would have been a disaster. I've been back now probably 14 years and absolutely no regrets. People used to tell me, when I'm overseas and I'm talking about Ernie Els winning a tournament or Bafana doing well or the Box doing well, they used to see a special smile. They said, okay, that boy's South African. And that's it for me. A sports journalist working in your home country. The Chicago Cubs can do well. The Boston Bruins can do well. I'm not going to get that excited.
You don't have a dog in the fight.
Correct. So, yeah, and being back, I have no regrets. I've done almost everything I've wanted to do with my career as a journalist.
Few people can say that. Yeah.
I'm fortunate because, certain things have taken me on a different path. Now what I'm doing now, I'm sure we'll discuss it a bit later, is tough. As an investigative sports journalist, we don't have a culture of investigative sports journalism in this country. So I'm fighting a pretty much a lone battle, but as I say, no regret.
Tell me about Highveld. What was that like? And the shift to radio.
Loved it. Everyone used to say to me, you got a face for radio anyhow. So it was perfect fit for me. And 7 fantastic years. 94.7. Jeremy was the key. Jeremy Mansfield gave us all an opportunity to develop this kind of family. Even though none of us were ever close. We knew what the show was about. It was kind of a theatre. But it was nice because you didn't have to dress up. You didn't have to put makeup on. You're going to work with shorts and slops. Loved Highveld. 7 really, really good years. Times of, waking up 4:30 every morning can change your lifestyle quite dramatically. But it was 7 really good years. We had so much fun and the stuff that we did. And people to this day still come up to me and the Joffers, my boy, stigma that Jeremy gave me, has stuck. And still today, I haven't been on Highveld for nearly 3 years. Still people wherever I go to golf days and functions, Joffers, my boy, what are you doing now, Joffers? And Jeremy really was the catalyst for something quite special for 7 years.
Mm-hmm. How did the decision come about? Because 7 years is not that long now.
Sure, I think it was more a case of my body couldn't take it anymore. I just felt that I tried, when Wacken and Sam took over, I tried for a couple of months and before that I already said to the guys, I maybe need to go to the afternoon show. I'm just not coping with the mornings, waking up 4:30, maybe trying to burn the candle at both ends. Doing golf days, having drinks, getting home at 11 o'clock, waking up at 4:30. Even the McDonald's drive-through couldn't cure those hangovers. But I just felt that it was time to move on. The show had kind of evolved to maybe a different age group. It wasn't, Jeremy and Wackett are 2 totally different personalities. So I just felt maybe it was a good time for me to go. Again, I have no regrets about the timing of actually leaving Highveld.
But the change is always quite scary. It's nervous-making.
Very, very. And, and again now it's become a scary reality for me in changing to become this investigative, hardcore sports journalist and not knowing where your next rant's going to come from. It's extremely, and I had nothing when I left Highveld. I started, doing bits and pieces of this. Luckily I still had a bit of MC work to keep the wolves away. But no, it's daunting. And especially as journalists in this country, if you don't find a niche or you don't have a specific goal in mind, but I am very driven and I've never been scared to work. And as I say, because it's like a hobby, I'm not scared to do 20 hours a day of writing and sports journalism. It's a real passion.
You set up SportsFire first on Radio Today.
Correct.
How did that happen?
Basically, I was looking for an avenue. The only thing I hadn't done was talk radio. That was the last thing I wanted to do, was to do a sports show where I could have my own niche, and be able to do what I wanted to do. And very few, because of the fact that a lot of people are nervous of a controversial sports journalist, I just had to find a station where I could do something. And it was the Radio Today. They're real radio people, lovely people, but unfortunately, an AM station trying to get advertising, being a kind of a whistleblower, it wasn't paying the bills. And I kind of also lost the passion, mainly because I've seen now for the last 2.5 years the corruption in South African sport, the misappropriation of funds, the maladministration. It's hard to have a passion and talk so positively about South African sport when you know what's really going on behind the scenes. So I lost a bit of the radio passion, and as I say, it was just it was another step moving on to what I'm doing now.
Which is?
SportsFire Daily has now become my passion, which is basically a sports newspaper, Monday to Friday, where we send it's a digital newspaper, where Monday to Friday to a database of right now over 100,000, where we're sending out the SportsFire Daily, Monday to Friday, where you get your sports news, whatever you need, whatever, stories, opinion, results, schedule, all this kind of stuff.
It's personalized.
Very much personalized, where if you're only interested in tennis, then you might only get the tennis stories. And those will be your top stories of the day. If you're only interested in rugby, maybe you'll only get the rugby stories. But I like to also cater for the minnow sports, the sports that really don't get the coverage they deserve.
Women's hockey,
netball, canoeing. I can name 20 sports that deserve so much more. We've got incredible athletes. But because the sponsors aren't there behind those people, you never really read about it in the mainstream press either. So I'm focusing on that, but also hard-hitting. I'm exposing the corruption from the lottery to the sports ministry, to the Olympic bodies, to the federation. It's reporting without fear or favor. And sadly, as I said, there's no mainstream press, there's just no culture of investigative sports journalism in this country, and for good reason. A lot of the mainstream press, the likes of SASCOC, the likes of SA Rugby, SA Cricket, SA Football, they pay for a lot of these journalists to go on these different trips. Because the trips are too long, and the media houses maybe can't afford to send a journalist overseas for 3 to 4 weeks on a tour, the media, they've been catered for. In essence, they're buying favourable journalism, which just doesn't sit well with me.
And are you finding an audience?
Slowly but surely the groundswell. I think people have had enough. Sport is no different to any other sector in this country where we have rampant corruption. And sport is the one thing in this country that keeps so many of us happy. The big smiles when the final win, when the Boks win. On a Saturday night after a South African win, the mood in the country is totally different. The hangover comes Sunday, Monday it's back to the grindstone. If sport is the one thing that keeps us so happy, why can't we clean it up? Why can't we have clean sport? There's enough other sectors where there's rampant corruption. Sport, sadly, is a soft underbelly of where so much of the corruption is, and people don't realize it. And millions is disappearing. And what I'm fighting for is really the athletes. The athletes are silenced by draconian codes of conduct. The federations are silenced because they're not going to get their money at the end of the day if they criticize the Olympic body or the lottery or the sports ministry. So you have a vicious circle where everybody's silenced. They try to silence me in the Olympic body SASCOC. I'm defending a 21 million rand defamation suit. It's not fun and games anymore.
How does one make a living out of it?
Through advertising. And again, some people are reluctant to sponsor. They would love to sponsor Whistleblower. If you go, wherever I go now, people say, Joffers, we love what you do. We love what you do. But sorry, we can't help you. There are others now that are, the advertisers are slow. I've been going for 3 months. We've got 4 or 5 advertisers on board already. Which is big for me. And it's, but it is scary. It's daunting because, for the last year or so, I've been blocked at every corner. From government level, from federation level, from super sport level. It's amazing how, people, when they get exposed, they become vindictive. They don't like, and it's, sadly, the pool is quite small for sports journalism in this country. So a lot of people don't want to touch me. And that's fine. I love what I'm doing. I'm passionate about what I'm doing. And, people need to know what's really happening in South African sport.
Are there stories or a story that you feel regret about, that maybe you've gone too far?
Not one. SASCOC are trying to silence me. The 21 million rand defamation suit for me, I'm defending it. I have nothing to hide. I've just got dossiers of information. And sadly, what's happened is a lot of athletes, coaches, and administrators have confided in me. So for 2.5 years, I've collected all this information, and some of it is gut-wrenching. When I read some of the stories, I have tears in my eyes at how we can have athletes in this country, top athletes, treated the way that they're treated. They can't say anything publicly. Then immediately they're marginalized. And some of the stories are heartbreaking. I could tell you a number of stories.
So you're driven by a feeling of almost of loyalty to these people who trusted you.
A loyalty to journalism and a loyalty to South African sportsmen and women that are not getting what they really deserve. And for a country, in our country, for what we have in facilities, finance, and talent, we should be getting 25 medals at the Olympic Games. We get 5 medals and we end up having a parade to celebrate our 5 medals. Now we're talking about SASCOC are talking about it, we'll be lucky to get 10 medals at Rio. You know what? We have the athlete, we have the talent, but a lot of these kids give up because they're not only because of transformation and quotas, but because of the first support. The funding is not getting into the right hands. If you look at the bank accounts, and if we did lifestyle audits from the sports ministry to SASCOC to all these people, to the people that sit on the lotto distribution board, it would be unbelievable. They've all formed this group together that you can't, you're almost the untouchables of South African sport, and it hurts me to see what's going on.
Can I go into something completely different? Township TV, where did that come from, and what was it about?
And it makes me sad actually, because that was the most beautiful thing that I've ever done. We put up 22 big screen televisions in the township to give people free entertainment. It was at the time when football went from the SABC to SuperSport. And we thought, wow, a friend of mine came and said, Graeme, surely that's wrong. How did the masses that can't afford DSTV end up watching football on a Saturday afternoon, on a Wednesday night, a Friday night? So that, it was born after about 6 months. We put up our first big screen television in Bachelorhood. Eventually we put up 22 around the country. They became fan parks 365 days of the year. The kids used to come there and watch. We used to control the programming. We had the whole DSTV bouquet. So from 2 to 3 there would be cartoons, 3 to 4 would be National Geographic, 4 to 5 maybe Zanzi Magic, 5 to 6 maybe SuperSport Blitz, and then if there was a football game it would be on till 10 o'clock in the evening. The people used to come to the parks, they used to congregate. I'll never forget day one when I arrived in the Bachelor Park and I did a recce. There were no hawkers around the park. When we put up the big screen TV, suddenly you had a shoe salesman, you had a hairdresser. It created jobs for the people, for the hawkers. We had 24-hour security. It created jobs. Actually, it makes my hair stand up.
How did you pay for it?
Through sponsors. So we had title sponsors. Initially it was MTN, then it was Cell C, then it was DSTV. And the project's gone.
Why? Why did it run out of steam?
We got messed around. We got told this. We got promised. We had a buyer. We had by different individuals who I don't want to name. And if you're not in the advertising game and you're not prepared to give backhanders, if you're a straight shooter, life can be difficult. And sadly, that's what happened. The project, we were made promises. There were people that were going to buy us out and take it to another whole level. It never materialized. To this day, the equipment sitting in storage. It breaks my heart. The people, the kids, the people that, to this day, where people send me messages when they think the TVs are going to be switched back on. I've been let down. Johannesburg City Parks. I wish, that's what aggravates me more, is people in positions of power. Whether it be the city of Joburg, the city parks, wherever, sponsors, big corporate. They should have a duty to look after what's really important and the people of this country. I feel, I did it for 7 years. I couldn't fight with the municipalities anymore. We did something so good for the community, but when you got costs of 500, 600,000 rand a month and not getting any funding for it, there's little you can do. I mean, we have a case where the city of Joburg still owes us 1.7 million from AFCON 2013. Legal battle to try and get the money. They're not prepared to pay. Where's that money gone? I saw it. 2.5 million was allocated to Township TV. 1.7 million is what we invoiced. That brought down the end of the company. I can't tell those. Very sad, please.
How to move on? Leave something behind you and just say, okay, that's it.
I said to the lawyers yesterday, they said to me, Graeme, are you prepared to fight? They defend every motion. Now, when it comes to government, I mean, if you sit in a roll call in a court, everything's against the fund. 9 out of 10 cases. Government agencies that just don't pay. They make all these promises. You give them
and
the
they
service.
have the deep pockets,
Correct.
Which the individual does not have.
And they use the public money to sue you. So they appeal, they do this, they do that. Is it worth going for 2 or 3 years of my life fighting for when you may not even get the money? When you're going to spend close to that kind of money on just fighting it?
So your decision is?
I don't know. Maybe the guy saying, Graeme, you're still quite angry. Just think about it. Let's wait till January. But maybe my decision is to give up. And the same as SASCOC. They sue me using public money. Money that should be going to our athletes. They spent over R1 million. We haven't even got to trial yet. They spent over R1 million suing me just to silence me, to bully me. That's no sense.
Let's talk about more peaceful things. Tell me about your home. Where do you live and how did you happen to arrive there?
Grew up in Highlands North. I went to Highlands Boys. Great. Those are my fond memories. as a kid growing up in Highlands North, walking to school, special times. Those are great. Lived in Atlanta then for 7 years, came back here, lived in a townhouse in Rivonia, but for a bachelor, too much admin. I mean, things were breaking. I'm not a handyman. If the globe went, I've got to get someone to come and fix it. So I gave up on a 2 or 3 bedroom townhouse in Rivonia, and since then I've been moving in. I live in an apartment in Morningside. Lock up and go. Love it. A rental. Don't own anything. If anything goes wrong, I call reception. I say, guys, come and fix this. TV goes, and someone come and fix it. Love it. It's just easy, very convenient to where I am. To lock up and go. 2 bedroom apartment. Easy. Not a microwave, very important.
Is there something sentimental that you take with you that makes it yours, or do you just use it? It's utilitarian.
Very little sentimental. My golf club. But I have my golf club. I will be very sad if I lose those. If anything gets stolen from me, that would be the worst thing you could steal from me. But I'm not a very what's the word? Working from home as well. Obviously, I need to be comfortable. There's nothing of real sentimental value that I hold dear to me in my apartment.
And that's the way you want to be. You don't have a castle in the air or a dream house somewhere.
No, I keep thinking about, having gone to Rhodes and the Eastern Cape very close to my heart. I would love to maybe live in a place where I could just wake up one day, smell the ocean, have coffee, sitting at a coffee shop, hearing the waves hit the rocks, even though I'm not a big beach fan. But I think that would change. It's a calming effect. Joburg has almost become quite, it's too tense for me. The Wild West, and because of a lot of the bad experiences that I've now more recently had.
Well, that is also what you focus on. That's where your attention is.
Correct. And and when you investigating so many different things, a lot of your mind, it's negative energy a lot of the time. But I love that part of it. I'm not worried about that. But maybe it is time for a change, just to get out and live somewhere else for a while.
But it sounds as if 3 months will kind of be enough. You can't sit on the strip or sit at the coffee shop and have coffee every day forever.
But when I was telling someone I'm going to maybe move down to Port Alfred, they said, "You've got your rocker down in Port Alfred." I said, "I work from home, so I just need my desktop, and then I've got all the information there." But no, I play, corporate functions that I do in Joburg. I still love it. I do so much for charity. I mean, if I go back now over the last 10 years, how many charity functions I've done, it makes me feel good.
And the work is I mean, that's the one thing about Johannesburg. It helps.
Correct. Yeah. No, there's a great pulse, but you know what? Maybe, who knows? Still young.
So there was I'm sure many people remember when 94.7 was looking for a wife. Were you really looking for a wife?
Don't remind me about that competition. No, Jeremy, they were looking for avenues to make different, marketing budgets and make more money, whatever. One day I was at home and I was watching The Bachelor on TV, and I go, how's this guy? I mean, all these American bombshells throwing themselves at him. I said, sure, help a bloke like Joffers. I said, Jimmy, how's that for me? So he says, oh, yeah. I didn't hear a word until about a month later he comes back and said, it's sponsored. I said, what sponsored? He said, Joffers, my girl. I'm going, you've got to be kidding me. So, I mean, there was no turning back. But I did warn them right at the beginning. I said, guys, but please don't model it around that Joffers will get married to the woman. Please. I mean, look, I've been a bachelor at that stage I was, 42. Don't model it like Joffers. This is it. The end of Joffers. But you know what? The first couple of days were funny because it was different. But after 3 weeks, living with 5 girls in the penthouse. I mean, one of you is enough. No, but for them it was a party. I had to wake up every morning, hop on school, and still go to the station. But look, people
and then report on last night.
Correct.
Oh dear.
It was luckily the girls all stayed in one apartment, and then I stayed in one apartment, in the Michelangelo, and then in the last week, that's when we all stayed together in the one apartment.
Sounds frightening.
Chef, the rest I've signed the confidentiality clause. I can't tell you anymore.
But so you still, what are the pros and cons of bachelorhood?
No, I think you want someone in your life. I'm reaching a stage now where I can't be happy with my whole life. I'm now 46. I think it's time to share. There are a lot of times where I have wanted to share with that special person, and look, I've become this kind of selfish individual where you're very set in your ways, so it's not that easy to then something to share with somebody. You need to find that special person, and hopefully that is something that will happen to me. And to be able to share your life with someone special, I think, you do want that. I mean, everyone will tell you there are a lot of pros being a bachelor. You don't have to, you don't have to tell what time you're going to be home. You don't have to worry about this or cleaning this or worried about that or leaving the toilet seat up. I don't know. I'll learn fast, I think, I do finally get into that serious relationship.
But that's not a vacancy ad.
No, not at all. No, I'm not putting it up. I'm not advertising it. No. If you want to advertise on SportsFire Daily, yes.
Graeme, thank you so much, and all of the very, very best.
What a pleasure, and just brings back fond memories to seeing you and all your incredible journalism that you did on Carte Blanche in those days. So for me, it's been a privilege and an honour.
Thank you. So well.